Sarah's going to talk to us about, well, it says there, intraLibrary Connect and repository ecology in action.
Yeah, I did change the title slightly last night when I was actually creating this. You know, when you sign up to do 3 different presentations at one conference 2 months before the conference, and then realise when you come to write the presentation that the title doesn't cover what you really wanted to say. It's covering the same general area, which is, I suppose, responding to a lot of what Dorothea was saying in the keynote speech, which...
Right, they both work.
Oh, okay. Which I really enjoyed, and I did agree with her points. And I suppose this is maybe something a bit more positive about how some people are using repositories with different web services interfaces and different standards to actually make it really easy for people, to make it really attractive for people, to get their attention as well. So my apologies for the graphic here. I don't do the marketing intellect. If you buy intraLibrary, you will not be able to use your laptop sitting at the beach. I think that's the only thing that implies. Okay, so in the beginning, a long time ago, intraLibrary was a repository in the e-learning domain, and it basically was for holding e-learning materials and interacting with a few other things like VLEs, maybe websites, maybe content creation tools. This is sort of getting more into the world that we're actually in at the moment, where people are wanting to use intraLibrary and other repository systems as well for a whole range of different kinds of things, some of which are overlapping, some of which aren't, which have different needs for access. Some need to be completely closed, some need to be open to only certain people, some we would like to make open on the internet to everybody. So there's a whole bunch of different requirements on institutions and also on consortia using repositories. So we live in a world of a lot of choices. I do agree with the previous speaker that we still have 24 hours in a day, but we do seem to have a lot more choices, and we do seem to be a lot busier. So what it's about really is not trying to build everything into one repository system, but making sure we're using a lot of the technologies that are available to allow people to work with their repositories, to easily set up their repositories to do the things they want to do. So we've kind of split it into 4 main areas: discover, gather, store, and inform. And I'll quickly run through some things that different people that we know of are doing with each of those. I mean, this is just a brief list of some of the protocols, standards, interfaces, and so forth that we're actually using at the moment. And they actually are all being used at the moment with real live repositories. These are the kind of tools that you can use with these different things. A lot of this is pitched at people that maybe don't know what those standards do. I need to speed it up actually because I want to get to the good bit. So first of all, looking at the discover part of the presentation, we support SRU and SRW searching. And one of the things that we've created in the last couple of years is an open source SRU client. It's very, very simple. So this is just a screenshot of what it would look like, just stuck on a web page with a logo. And you basically just do a simple search on whatever fields you want and submit the search. It goes away, it queries your intraLibrary behind the scenes. Nobody has to log in or see the repository interface. This is a very badly formatted example of how you could format the results coming back. I didn't do that, and Charles Duncan, who did, is always apologising for it. But that's just an example of what you could get and using our open source SRU client with no tinkering with it. You could also embed it in an institutional web page and change the style sheet and get it looking slightly different. We also, well, you can use SRU to do an open search browser search or set up an open search browser search where you just have it as another option in your search box in your browser, and again pull back a bunch of hits. The reason I'm not doing this live is I kind of wanted to show you the sword deposit tool later, and I didn't want to jinx myself by trying to do too many things live. So, and for some of you might have heard around the conference today about the IRIS Learning Exchange Open Search, which is so far for us the pinnacle of what can be achieved using this SRU client with a highly flexible, configurable repository behind the scenes for managing the data, and putting this thing on top and creating something that's open on the web. Now, I'm very briefly going to show it. Ian Watson and Paul Hart are sitting at the front down there. They're the guys to approach if you have any detailed questions about how they did this. They have actually open sourced, you know, the tool that they've created on top of our open source tool. And just before I show it to you, just to mention that Jorum are currently investigating, they're looking at ways of doing an open Jorum openly available on the web, and this is starting to look like an approach that might be useful for that. Plus, various universities are using this with intraLibrary so that they can manage both their learning resources within the institution and make openly available research outputs as well via the web, via a simple interface. So this approach is being used a lot. And see how long it takes us to open up.
Say, do not work with animals, children, or live internet connections.
It was working before, and of course I foolishly tested it 10 minutes before the session started. Tra-la-la-la. Oh no! Oh, good thing I saved that password, eh? There we go. So this is just an open website live. They've got some nice features, like if you start to type in any word, it gives you keywords from the thesaurus that they use to catalogue the resources. So I've started to type in child, then children, and I can just select one of those. I'll run the search. And here we have a list of resources pulled straight out of the repository behind the scenes. You can, actually I'll do that, make sure I do that in a new tab. You can go straight to the resource. Oh, well, you can take my word for that. You can look at full metadata. That's not actually the full metadata, but it's the metadata fields that IRIS decided they wanted to pull out of the LOM records to show to users. You can click on any one of these metadata values, and it will run a search again based on that value, and you'll get a new list of search results. And I think for some items where they're actually in IMS content packages, so they're learning resources packaged up, they can, and for the ones that the copyright owners have allowed this, you can actually download the content package to upload straight into your VLE, and plus a few other things that you can do there. So, oops, that's intraLibrary has a lot more functionality like that, but that is that's an example of what they've done using the interface that we provided and pulling out the standardized metadata and other things like content packages. Another thing that we've used SAU to build is VLE plugins. This is, for anybody that's familiar with what used to be called WebCT, this is a sort of generic WebCT interface. It's actually a Blackboard Enterprise now. You can use a power link to enable your academics to go straight into WebCT. They don't have to learn a new interface. They don't have to have another login. They can simply go into their course building section, select your repository, you can call it whatever you want, search for the repository for stuff, bring it back, and the link to that resource goes straight into the course. We've already got Keele University implementing this, and they're integrating it with their copyright, digitized, scanned copyright materials collection. They're using intraLibrary to manage that so that they can report to the Copyright Licensing Authority every 6 months and to deliver these chapters and other copyright materials to academics straight into their WebCT. So that's rolling out in September. Oops, I should just say the bottom bullet point there, Moodle and Blackboard building block integration is also coming soon, also using the SAU interface. I'll skip over that. Just talking about OAI PMH, I think it was Peter commented in one of the sessions I was in today that OAI PMH, no, someone else, you can't search with it. What you can do is harvest with it though, and overnight update your catalogue. We're currently working with NHS eLearning Scotland, which basically serves every NHS staff member in Scotland with e-learning materials. They've got an e-library which pulls in resources from all kinds of databases, medical databases, things that index journals and so on. They're building up a learning object repository now. They're going to harvest overnight to make sure that all those records are in their eLibrary catalogue and can be searched within the eLibrary. But they're also eventually going to build an SAU client like the Iris one to provide a direct open search website just for learning resources for when people want to just access those. And actually both NHS Scotland and NHS England are planning to use the new SWORD deposit protocol to allow their tens of thousands of users across the UK to submit new learning resources they've created straight from the Compendal content authoring tool that they're also using. So people will be able to create a new learning resource or repurpose or edit an existing learning resource in Compendal, tag it with metadata and send it straight into their intraLibrary repository in content package format to then be pulled out again by other people at the other end. So all these protocols have been just a great boon for allowing the stuff that we've been talking about for years. Now, the SWORD desktop deposit tool, I think it's tomorrow that Julie's giving a talk about SWORD specifically, which will be really good. Is that right, Julie? Or have you given it already? Have you already done it? Oh, was it? Oh, okay. So, well, you need to talk to... What? Oh, Julie already did that talk in one of the soapboxes. Sorry, Julie, I thought that you were doing it in one of these sessions. If you want to see more and you missed that, do speak to Julie because she project managed the development of SWORD, which is basically an open protocol, a profile of the Atom publishing protocol that allows remote direct deposit into any repository that supports it. So we've developed a desktop drag and drop deposit tool. This is just an example of how that works in case my live one didn't work. How am I doing for time, Peter? Okay, good. Right. What we've got here is an instance of intraLibrary version 3 in beta. I've browsed to Creative Arts and Design. I've got, how many resources? 12 resources. Some of them are nice pictures from New Zealand. Some of them are content packages, some of them are PDFs, and so on. Some of them have been rated, so I can redo the listing to put the highest rated ones at the top. You can see the average star ratings there on the side. If I want to see who's actually done it. There's only one comment on there and one person rated it, but that would list all the ratings if other people had done it, and so forth. Now, just going to my desktop. Ta-da! Hey, what are you laughing at? Doesn't everybody have a desktop like that? This is actually, the main reason it looks like this is because of these demos that I do, where I want to actually, can I do this? Let me select several images at once and drag and drop them to the SWORD deposit tool. Sorry, I should have set this bit up a bit better. There it is over there. That is the shortcut to my desktop drag and drop. Let's hope that that works. Today, it worked last night, I promise. I think you can set it up so the user doesn't have to see that bit. But I'll just keep an eye on that, just so I don't embarrass myself when I go into the repository. Okay, now this time, I've actually set it up so that it classifies everything at this node, just to make it easier for me doing these demos. There we have 3 brand new, date added, 31st to the 7th, 08 images. That's a miniature horse in New Zealand. That actually is from the town I grew up in, and that's the guy that did Rocky Horror Picture Show, who also grew up in that town. It's been 11 years now, it's very extended. I just have to say, this little fella, and don't you love the way she's dressed, he won Best Stallion in the show, and it was just the best moment ever, because he was up against these Lipizzaners, thoroughbreds and everything, and they were gutted. Look at him, he's so cute. Okay, sorry, I do get sidetracked into my New Zealand photos when I'm doing these. I'll show you what happens when you click Show Only Images. All the images that were in that search results, for which you can get back to using the tab at the top, you can look at them in a gallery format like that and select them and do the various things with them, put them in your basket, add them to your favourites, and so on. I did have it set up to just briefly show you what happens with the content package as well. Where is it? There it is. Not a very self-explanatory, not a very explanatory file name there, but you'll see when it goes in. And I actually think this might be one I nicked out of Iris, so I hope they don't mind. I really must tidy up all the IPR to do with my... there it is, it's called Ethnicity and Culture. And if I want to preview that, that's just a content package in a zip file. But you can actually see, work through it as a content package, preview it as a content package, and work through it as a content package. And with the live links and activities workable and all of that. So, just going back to the presentation. We've got a number of the universities, particularly ones that are wanting to implement intraLibrary behind a sort of open research repository, are wanting to look at ways to build on that client to make it a lot easier for academics to deposit their research outputs. And we hope that other people will build on that for the learning object thing as well. I mean, I think the main thing, I was talking about this with Philip Hunter, I think, earlier, is that we need to make it part of their normal workflow. So we need to maybe use the SWORD deposit specification so that they just do one click and it goes off to their subject repository, their institutional repository, and the RAE repository. For academics using teaching and learning materials, I think ultimately what we'd like to do with the WebCT thing I showed you is not just have them be able to pull things out of the repository, but have them be able to do, when they're putting things into the repository, do one click, into the VLE, do one click and it goes into the VLE and the repository at the same time. I won't go into all this because you all know about newsreaders, RSS news feeds. From intraLibrary you can also do podcasts of learning materials straight into iTunes or any other podcasting reader, and you can do feeds on any search or browse that you do. So basically you want digital repositories to integrate with your existing tools. There are plenty of standards and specifications to allow that. You just need to be able to put the effort in and also find out beforehand how the customers actually want to use it. Well, I say customers, probably people who are working with open source stuff wouldn't call them customers, but it's the same thing, it's the end user. We need to be able to encourage mashups and so on, and open standards support all of these new uses and things. So I think that's my last slide. I'll just leave it there. I hope that wasn't too much of a sales pitch. I really wanted to just show you some interesting stuff that was happening without coming on too heavy, but yeah.